Hello, RotoBallers. I'm Matt Donnelly, and now that the NFL season is officially over, we flip the page to NFL draft season, and we're going to talk about all the top NFL draft prospects here for the 2024 NFL draft. But right now, we want to talk about the top 10 as far as tight ends are concerned, because we've seen a shift in recent years. Well, I mean, last year, let's be honest, of the importance of the tight end position. There's some new young guns coming in there. Trey McBride, Sam Laporta, out with the old, in with the new. And we have an elite tight end right now in Georgia tight end, Brock Bowers. Not only is Brock Bowers the top tight end in this year's draft class, but he is among the top 3 pass catchers available in this draft. The only way that Bowers doesn't hear his name called within the first 10 selections is if NFL managers decide they want to protect their precious salary cap. You see, Bowers is likely to earn about $8 million as a top 10 selection, where the top tight ends right now are currently making about $12 million as opposed to some of the other positions. GMs, they can get value on rookie contracts, just not value on rookie tight end contracts if they're taken in the first 10 picks. Now let's leave the dollars and cents to all those capologists out there, and let's talk about talent, and which is one thing that Bowers certainly has plenty, but he doesn't exactly have a whole heck of a lot of size. Then again, elite tight ends, they don't need no stinking size in today's National Football League. Bowers, he is basically indefensible when it comes to working the seams. Linebackers, safeties, they can't cover him, as he's expected to run in that 4.4 to 4.5 range. And corners, they're typically too small. And yes, I know I said Bowers was small, but corners are even smaller. Bowers is essentially Dalton Kincaid, except every tool in his toolbox is the newest, the shiniest, and the best. How many tight ends can say they had 175 catches and 26 touchdowns and more than 2,500 receiving yards in just 3 seasons or 40 games? Not a whole lot. My number 2 tight end, Jaavan Sanders out of Texas. Sanders is the only other tight end in this class that I expect a fantasy return on my investment, as his skills, it puts him into first-round consideration come April 24th. Like Bowers, Sanders, he doesn't have that elite size, but he should run in the 4.5s. And we know that he can run multiple routes, and he's more than capable of picking up yards after the catch. Actually, that's one of his strongest suits. Sanders is a better blocker and a little bit more physical than Bowers, but we don't care about that when it comes to fantasy football. I'd love to see someone like Sanders end up in Miami with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, where his run after the catch abilities fit in quite nicely. Or Cincinnati with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I mean, those would be ideal spots. Now, only Bowers, Sanders, and Yahe Bell averaged more than 1.8 yards per route run over their college careers at the tight end position, and that is saying something. At number 3, how about Ben Sonat there out of Kansas State? If Bowers is tier 1 and Sanders is in tier 2, then Ben Sonat is the start of the 3rd tier of the tight ends available in this draft. And that 3rd tier of tight ends, there's 3 guys there that are pretty much interchangeable post-combine. But for now, Sonat, he has the edge. I mentioned tight ends that have averaged more than 1.8 yards per route run over their college careers. Well, Sonat, he finished 2023 averaging 2.02 yards per route run and finishing with 669 yards, with 326 of those yards coming after contact. That's a big deal. Now, what is going to be interesting to see is how teams view Sonat here. Do they see him as a tight end? Do they see him as a fullback? But he has some nice traits as far as fantasy is concerned. At number 4, Florida State tight end, Yahe Bell. Now, it's clear at this point that I have a type. I make no qualms about it. Versatile tight ends that can pick up those yards after the catch and have big-time yards per route run abilities. The days of put your hand in the dirt and block tight ends, those have passed. They've come and gone. Also, like the tight ends ahead of him on this list, Bell, he's a little bit of a tweener there. He's a little bit smaller, measuring in about 6'3", 245 pounds. But it is hard to ignore 13.3 yards per reception that he produced during his time at South Carolina and at Florida State. Bell is an explosive playmaker that shows excellent speed and perhaps has the most yards after the catch playmaking abilities amongst his peers. At number 5, how about Kane Stuver out of Ohio State? Stuver is one of 3 tight ends in the draft to average 1.5 yards per route run against man and over 2 yards per route run versus zone coverage. The other 2 tight ends, Iowa's Eric All and the aforementioned Florida State tight end there in Yahe Bell. Stuver was productive at Ohio State, hauling in 41 passes for 576 yards and 5 touchdowns. However, that production we tend to forget about it because some dude there named Marvin Harrison Jr. At 6'4", 250 pounds, Stuver looks like a beast compared to these other tight ends I've already talked about. But again, he's not exactly that traditional tight end build either. Stuver is likely going to test well when it comes to the 40, running somewhere in that 4.5 to 4.6 range. And the reason I have him a little bit lower on this list is I am expecting his measurables to come in somewhat disappointing, and that wingspan, well, size does matter. At number 6, a tight end who will not have his size questioned, and that is Theo Johnson out of Penn State. Now we move on to that 4th tier of tight ends, and unlike that 3rd tier, there's probably about 10 tight ends that you can make an argument being ranked inside the top 10, but clearly behind the top 5. I'm giving Johnson the edge here because of that size. Finally, we get a chance to talk about a big nasty in these rankings. Okay, he's 6'6", and he's somewhat slim, coming in somewhere around that 255-pound mark. But he should finish with a nice relative athletic score thanks to that size and the fact that he should run somewhere in that 4.5 range. Johnson, he is raw, and he's going to take some time to develop, as his route running is not up there with the rest of these tight ends. But where he lands is going to be important. He lands in that right spot that can harness his explosiveness, that speed, that agility. He could be that sleeper tight end from this year's class. At number 7, Jared Wiley out of Texas Christian University. Wiley is a big target, even bigger than Johnson there, coming in at 6'7", and is more of that prototypical positional type pass catcher. Anytime that he picks up additional yardage, it's because he broke a tackle or two, and not because he shook a defender and took it down the field. The combine is going to be ever so important for Wiley, considering all these other tight ends I have ranked above him are projected to test well in the 40, and that is somewhere that he's not necessarily projected to test well himself. Wiley's size makes him an ideal target inside the 20, where he could find himself having some fantasy value. Now, number 8, Eric All out of Iowa. Tight end university players automatically get a spot in my top 10 list. George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta, even Noah Fant. All looks to add his name to that list, and if his yards per route run are any indication of future success, then he has a chance to make a name for himself in a lackluster Iowa offense. All still average 3.74 yards per versus man coverage, and he did pretty good against zone coverage, averaging 2.33 yards per. That's enough to get your attention. At least it should be. His career receptions, that should probably get your attention too, because they're not great. But I'm willing to take a shot on him later on in fantasy drafts with the hope that some of that Hawkeye tight end magic rubbed off on him. At number 9, DAndre Hulker out of Colorado State. Again, not the greatest blocker, but then again, nobody cares if you can block anymore as a tight end. Who cares? He makes tough catches look easy, and that's what I like to see. Production does matter, and averaging 12 yards per reception, hauling in 64 passes for 767 yards is the type of production that catches fantasy managers' eyes. Colorado State used Hulker mostly out of the slot, and he did put up similar numbers to that of one Trey McBride from a couple seasons ago. Hulker does everything well, just nothing great. And while he is a smooth operator, he too is likely to run slower than most of these tight ends in this class. And finally, at number 10, we have ourselves Brevin Ford. The final spot really is up for grabs when we're talking about the top 10 rookie tight ends. I mean, just missing out Devin Culp there out of Washington, Trey Knox out of South Carolina, and AJ Barner out of Michigan. They can all make claims to be inside this list. This means, for now, I'm going to give the spot to Ford by default, at least until after the combine. Ford, he's going to be a weapon down in the red zone thanks to his size. 6'7", 270 pounds. That's pretty tough to defend. For a man his size, he moves well. And just a couple seasons ago, people forget, he had 497 yards on 43 catches. Stay tuned, as I am expecting plenty of movement in the tight end rankings between now and the 2024 NFL Draft, as the combine and landing spots are going to play large roles for fantasy managers in determining those tight ends, especially in that 6 through 10 range. As always, hit that like and subscribe button to ensure that you do not miss any of the content coming your way on the RotoBaller YouTube channel, and head over to rotoballer.com for all the latest fantasy news and analysis. See you next time.